This is not where I thought we would be today. But here we are. That was a great day for 49er ownership. It's been a great day. And that was one of the most interesting nuggets that Jed York has ever said. Actually, let me do that again. That was the most interesting thing that Jed York has ever said today. So we can talk about winning with class. We can talk about him getting out of the way. We can talk about smart decisions like hiring Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And then we can talk about what he actually said when he decided to come out and speak today. And so we're going to play this for you in just a couple of minutes, because the nugget that he shared about the development of Brock Purdy, which was basically a conduit to him explaining the relationship between him and Kyle Shanahan, I find this to be about as interesting and open as it gets within the framework of a professional sports franchise.
It was pretty interesting. And, to hear Jed say it the way he said it, and, just the way Kyle came to him and basically laid it out like Kyle was the boss and that Jed was like the underling. And Kyle says, well, this is what I see and this is what we're doing. And he said sorry without saying sorry. Like, we did this and we did that, but turns out this guy's going to be the best quarterback we have. And, deal with it, Jed.
Well, this is important. Like, we're going to play for you what he said, but think about something else for a second. The way he said it. This is important. Why does an owner get out the way? Get out the way.
Totally.
Get out the way. Why does an owner get out of the way? And why are they uber hesitant to show up and talk now? There's a reason for that. There's a very, very, very defined reason for that. And this is what it is. An owner does not want to just stay in the background. That's going to be their choice and their way. And then as soon as things go well, time for a press conference.
Here I am, yeah.
Here I am. Everybody say hi to me. I own this team and we're good. I'm good, right? Pat me on the back, love me, say good things about me. So if Jed is going to speak this week, and there was clearly a thirst for it, he had to do it in a certain way. And the way he had to do it was to give all of the credit to everybody else. All of the credit to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Roster construction and the ability to assess the players you have and the courage to walk up to him in the middle of maybe the most controversial training camp that this organization has ever known and say what he said. Here's the story. Jed York talking about Kyle Shanahan and a conversation they had before last season. Training camp 2022.
We haven't really talked much about Brock, but that's a good example of Kyle's directness. Last year in preseason, I think week 1 of training camp, which you have a quarterback that we're paying, I think, $20 million to. You have a guy that you drafted with investing 3 first-round picks into, and he grabs me after practice. He's like, hey man, we got to talk. And that's generally not a good thing when your coach tells you to talk. I'm like, all right, what's up? And he's like, I think our third-string quarterback's our best quarterback. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, obviously, we've invested in Trey. Trey's doing a good job. We're going to do everything that we can. We're not going to change that. And we're not going to change the depth chart. But, I think Brock will end up being our quarterback at some point. And, he didn't force it, right? You had 2 injuries, and that's how Brock ended up playing. But he's always honest, even if it's not, one thing that owners don't love to hear when they've invested money and or draft picks or both into people, that the last pick in the draft is the guy that we think is the best. That's generally not great news, but he's honest and he let it play out the right way.
I would have paid so much, whatever y'all are going to pay for Super Bowl tickets.
To be there.
I'd have paid to be the third person in that room just to look at the looks on faces when Jimmy Garoppolo, when signed, highest paid player in the history of the NFL.
Right.
Heaven and earth, biggest trade in the history of the organization, moved to go get Trey Lance. Then you awkwardly bring Jimmy Garoppolo back for millions more to be your backup quarterback. And oh, by the way, Jed left one thing out. Brock Purdy, for parts of that training camp, was not the third stringer. He was the fourth stringer.
Exactly.
Because Nate Sudfeld had been given $2 million as well.
Sudsy.
And Kyle walks up to him and says, I need to tell you something.
And Jed says, that's never a good thing.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
That's the greatest conversation ever.
All those millions and all those draft picks that we kind of had you pay and expend, well, go ahead and wad those up and throw them in the trash because at some point, this guy, Brock Purdy, is going to be our quarterback. And Jed probably looked at him and thought, his thoughts were probably like, oh, no effing way. No way. But the other part of him is like, I hired this guy. I believe in this guy. And if he thinks that is the case, well, I have to go with it because you hire Kyle because he's an expert and you hire John because he's an expert. And if you're the owner, you do that knowing that there's a lot of things that are out of your control. And even though that conversation was, I'm sure, very uncomfortable for both, Jed at the end of it has to be like, okay, Kyle, I believe in you. I hired you. I believe in you. Okay.
That's how we're going to win.
Let's see. It's Brock, right?
Right.
It's Brock.
What's his name?
Let's see. Rick?
That's right.
Rick Purdy?
Yeah.
Let's see how this Rick Purdy can play.
Well, and he doesn't rush it, right? He's not like, hey, Jed, I think we need to start Brock Purdy week 1.
Right.
Not doing that. And Kyle has spoken to that at least once or twice. It wasn't like firmly spoken about, but he's like, we're not in a position to make that kind of a move. He'd never played an NFL game. But I wonder, does this change the Brock Purdy story for anybody, even in just a little bit of a way? Because there is something, not that we need to know this now. He's been great. He's top 5 MVP. He's in the Super Bowl. But this legitimizes the story a little bit in my mind. Because what do we know about the Brock Purdy narrative? The Brock Purdy conversation has always not just been about what he does, but it's where he came from. Did you know he was good? Is he actually good? Or is this just some sort of systematic presence that has developed out of 49er football at this time? What this tells me is that in no uncertain terms, not like, that guy's kind of good. No. I'm going to firmly walk across the grass. I'm going to call a meeting with my owner, and I'm like, hey, owner, that's the guy.
Right.
That's the guy.
Maybe not now, but he will be the guy. And, just so you know, he's going to be the guy.
I'm working with him for 4 weeks.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for. That's what we've been looking for. That's doesn't that put a different spin on the Brock Purdy conversation? Because I think a lot of people have been cruising around for 2 years now going, well, a couple guys broke their legs and, well, he just went out there and
sure.
Debo and Christian were standing there, so he had no choice but to be good. No, they saw this 3 months before that.
A little bit of the Obi-Wan, Luke Skywalker vibes where Luke is out there, whining about having to go get power converters, living with his uncle and his aunt in the middle of nowhere. And Obi-Wan's like, no, you're the guy. Come with me. Right? We're going to train you. You're the guy.
Or like The Matrix. I mean, Keanu Reeves in front of his computer. You are the chosen one.
Right.
What? I'm high. What do you mean I'm the chosen one? No. You are the chosen one.
Yeah, a little bit of that Neo vibe.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the way it goes. And, you go to the owner and you say, look, Jimmy, I know we're paying him $20 million. Sorry about that. And I know we spent 3 firsts to move up to get Trey. My bad. But, hey, the good news is, Jed, I think I found a guy who's better than both of them. So, yeah, at some point, he's going to be the guy. And, man, it's going to work out, and you're going to love it. All right, Jed, I got to go. I got to go to practice.
Good talk.
Yeah.
What?
Totally.
Like, wouldn't it have been great to follow Jed to the car? Hey, Jed, what are you thinking right now? It's somewhere.
I'm thinking I want my $20 million back.
Right, like it's somewhere between shrug your shoulders and your ears are about to fly off of your head.
Right.
You are so steaming mad. What? How are we going to get out of this?
Right.
How? That's the next question. Kyle tells me that at some point this is going to be our quarterback. How? How are we getting out of this? Like, I get the Jimmy part's easy. You get one more year,
sure,
and then it goes away. But
the Trey part.
But Trey, what are we? Hey, coach.
What are you doing?
What are we going to do?
What are you doing?
What are we going to do?
So you spent 3 first-round picks to move up and take a guy who's now going to be supplanted by Mr. Irrelevant?
Right.
Like, and imagine if Brock didn't turn out to be Brock Purdy. If Brock turned out to be just a guy, like, maybe you go 8-9 and you trade Trey Lance and you hope that Brock's the guy and he turns out he's not the guy. Well, then what? Then
right.
where are we?
Well, that's that, right? Isn't that the obvious thought that? And in fact, many of you said this back before the season. Well, Kyle, you better be right.
Exactly.
He was.
Yeah,
he was.
I mean, he has been right, and he was right. I mean, here we are again. And last year he gets to the conference championship game, and his arm gets ripped off, and you think, okay, man, surgery, and boy, you go into this year and. Maybe Trey and maybe Sam Darnold. You never know if Brock can't get healthy. Think about our conversations back in May and June. If Brock doesn't get healthy, what do? Sam, Trey, Brandon Allen sure looks good in OTAs.
Do you ever go through some of the major 49er injuries of the last 3 or 4 years and think about gosh, I don't want to be disrespectful, but sort of kind of thank God they happened.
It worked out.
Right? Like Nick Bosa's on the team because Jimmy tore his ACL.
Right.
What if Trey never got hurt? Well, at some point, Brock's going to be the QB. How? Like that?
Well, Trey gets benched.
Oh, there you go.
And that would have happened.
But that means
sooner than later.
But that also probably means that your record isn't good. That comes from you're losing football games.
You don't start 5-0 with Trey Lance.
There's no NFC title game last year. If Trey doesn't get hurt and you're like, well, we're going to have to bench him because we're 5-8. Well, so that's another lost year.
Yeah.
That means Brock never has his playoff experience when he arrives back on. The sliding doors effect is unbelievable. It's incredible to think about.